This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abam. We're continuing Mishna Berura, Daf Hashavua. We're learning Siman Mem Zayin. We are up to Seif Zayin. Birchas Ahavas Oilam Poiteres Birchas Hatorah Im Lamad Miyad B'li Hefsek. The bracha of Ahavas Oilam. Now he refers to Ahavas Oilam because he holds that the bracha in Shachris is Ahavas Oilam. The Ramah says no, it's Rabba. But it's referring to the bracha right before Kriya Shema. The bracha of Ahavas Oilam paters Birchas Hatorah if you learned immediately without any interruption. Now it's interesting that the Mishna Berura said in Sivkatan Aleph that Birchas Hatorah is probably the Oraisa. That's the opinion of the Shagasariye. However, if you're Mesupik, if you made Birchas Hatorah, you make it again. But he says, since it's a Safek, you only make the bracha of Asher Bachar Banu. Some Achronim, the Mishna Berura said, hold that Misafek, you don't go back. But the Mishna Berura says it's very hard to rely on those shitos because the consensus of the Achronim is that Birchas Hatorah is Dairaisa. He says it could be, if you remembered after davening that you already said Birchas Rabba, you could be mekel even if you didn't learn right away. But if you can, ask someone to mitzvah you, or lechatchila have in mind that Rabba should pater you. Now the Mechaber is saying that Ahavas Oilam paters Birchas Hatorah, but one stipulation, you got to learn right after davening. Says the Mishna Berura Ahavas Oilam, nakat Ahavas Oilam lefi masha pasuk lekaman b'siman samach sif aleph. He picked Ahavas Oilam according to what's paskin later on in Siman samach sif aleph. Avo l'Rama sham, but according to the Rama, Oimrim they say Ahava Rabba b'shachris. Upasha duadin b'birchas Ahavas Oilam ba'arvis gam kein shepoteres. It's not only Ahava Rabba paters, it's Pashat Ahavas Oilam at night also paters. Why? The Zil Basar Taima. Follow the rationale. It's a bracha on the Torah. By the way, it's well known Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach would tell a bar mitzvah bacher that when he says Ahavas Oilam, he should have in mind to be Yoytze Birchas HaTorah. And by the Shtas Chuvas Eretz Tzvi, the Dirshu brings also says about that a bar mitzvah bacher should be mechavin in Birchas to be Yoytze Birchas HaTorah and Ahavas Oilam. Okay. The Mishna Berura continues. V'nafkamino le'inyan im avar v'yashen shnas keva al mitasei koidem. Here's a nafkamina. The nafkamina is, what if a person slept on his bed? A shenas keva. L'das ha'mechaber l'kaman b'sif yud aleph. The shenas keva have a hefsek. If you take a 2-hour nap, Shabbos afternoon, according to the mechaber, it's a hefsek. So then, you should have in mind in Ahavas Oilam at night that you want to be Yoytze Birchas HaTorah. You hear this? According for Sfardim who take a nap, they need to have in mind in Ahavas Oilam that Ahavas Oilam should pater their Birchas HaTorah. But what about us that we're lenient? Even according to our opinion that we are noyeg to be lenient, and that we don't make another Birchas HaTorah after Shenas Kava. Tov Yoiser Sheichavin Birchas Ahavas Oilam Liftar. It's better to mechavin in Ahavas Oilam to pater. Let's say Sidei Das Roiv HaPoiskim to Yoytze most Poiskim Hamachmirim Bezeh Kamavar LeKamam b'Mishna Berura Ayin Sham v'Ayin Biber Halacha Oid Nafkamina. So the first thing is, it comes out of Chiddush Nifla. Most people sleep on Shabbos. It comes out that by Mariv Matzoi Shabbos, one should be mechavin in Ahavas Oilam to be Yoytze Birchas HaTorah. Until then, you don't make it, because misafek, you don't make a Birchas HaTorah. But at least now you have a way to get out of the safek. Namely, you could be Yoytze Birchas HaTorah by You could be Yotzei Birchas Hatorah through Avas Olam. That's something that I didn't think about. In other words, every Motzei Shabbos, you should be Mechavin for Birchas Hatorah in Avas Olam. Let's see the Bir Halacha for another Nafkamina.
Then you have to learn right away also. No?
Right, yes, and then, correct. Then it would come out, you should learn right away after Marav. Yes. Look in the first Bir Halacha, Birchas Avas Olam, I Mishna Berura. Oid Nafkamina, L'mishin Araga Lumoid, Sheroitz Lumoid Tekef Achar Arvis. Another Nafkamina. Someone who doesn't usually learn, who wants to learn right after Marav. The Einoid Tzarech Levarach Afilu Dasa Mechaber Lekaman B'Sif Yud. L'fi Mashikasav Magid Avram Sham Demachmer Behefsik B'Mishen Araga Lachzer Ali Mudai. It sounds like this. It sounds like if you are completely Mesiach Das from learning. In other words, you're going to learn in the morning, and then you're going to go out to work. What do? You're a forester. You chop down trees, and you never, ever, 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 ever learn during the day. Impossible. You have in mind Hinimucha Mezuman to be mafsik from learning. Then you might have to make another Birchas Hatorah at night. So you'll be yotzei with Avas Olam. Says in Mishna Berura Sivkaton Yodaled. Paiteres sheyesh ba me'ein Birchas Hatorah. Avas Olam has in it some semblance of Birchas Hatorah, namely v'seim b'libeinu lilmaid, u'lelamed, lishmar, v'lasos, u'lekayim, u'lechayr midasasa mashma, da'afilu lo'kivim be'es habracha lifter b'zer Birchas Hatorah sagi, v'ayim beber halacha. The mechaber is mashma that Birchas Avas Olam pater is Birchas Hatorah if you davened, even if you were not mechavein when you said the bracha to be yotzei Birchas Hatorah. I'm not sure why that would be. L'chara we paskin mitzvah srichas kavana, and if you were not mechavein by Birchas Hatorah, how in the world would you be yotzei? I would say even if you hold mitzvahs ain't srichas kavana, if you're not mechavein for Birchas Hatorah, it's almost like you're misasek. You're not even doing it. Yeah.
Isn't there the kavanah of the bracha itself over here? If you have stand kavanah, not Birchas Hatorah, the shaying the Birchas Hatorah make in the morning, but still I'm assuming having kavanah about the answer bracha, so maybe that's enough.
Mm-hmm. If mitzvos ain't shrichos kavana.
No, even if it's shrichos kavana, over here I am having a kavanah about all the words of the bracha, which inherently are Birchas Hatorah. I'm just not specifically for the mitzvah of Birchas Hatorah.
But on the other hand, you could say, I'm mechavein here for something else. I'm mechavein here to say Birchas Kriya Shema. Let's see the Bir Halach for a second. Ayin b'Mishna Berura, u'midivrei Talmud. Right, so the Mishna Berura says, the mechaber is mashma even if you didn't have it in mind. It says the Bir Halacha, Ayin b'Mishna Berura, u'midivrei Talmidei Rabbeinu Yoina shamashma. From the words of Talmidei Rabbeinu Yoina, it's mashma l'chayra. De'im yoidea bevadai shaloi kivein. If you know for sure you did not have it in mind. Oy kigoin shenizkar shaloi amar Birchas Hatorah ad achar she'amar Ahava Rabba. Or, not that you know you didn't have it in mind, you weren't even aware, you didn't even remember that you didn't say Birchas Hatorah until after Ahava Rabba. Ein Ahava Rabba paiteres. Ahava Rabba will not pater. So you must be mechavein. So even though the mechaber is mashma, kavana is not necessary, the Talmidei Rabbeinu Yoina l'chara mashma, you need to have kavana. Aval midivrei harasham l'fi ma shehizber sfras Yerushalmi shematzach lishnois al asar l'chara in l'chalik b'zeh. Achre eza matzasi, look what I found. Achre kach b'prima gadim. Dim roitza yuchal l'chavim b'feirush b'virchas Ahava Rabba shaloi liftar l'virchas Hatorah debezel l'kol yama ina yotzei. Afilu man damar mitzvahs einot tzrichas kavana. if you want, you could be mechavein explicitly in Ahava Rabba not to pater Birchas Hatorah. Meaning, let's say you were not mechavein when you said, let's say like this. You remembered after Ahava Rabba that you did not say Birchas Hatorah. So the Mechaber seems to say, okay, you're Yotzei if you learned right away, even if you're not Mechavein. But the Pri Megadim says, what you could do is have Kavanah explicitly not to be Yotzei, and then you're definitely not Yotzei with Ahava Rabba, and then you can say Birchas Hatorah after. But the mechaber is mashma, you don't need to be mechavein. And the Mishna Berura doesn't argue with that. In other words, if you said Birchas Avas Oilam and you were not mechavein, it seems like it will work. Not sure why. Saying because you're saying it, but that's provided that you learned immediately. Im lamad, the Birchas Ahava Rabba. Kivan deniskan ho'ikar l'kriya shema, loy mischazi l'shem Birchas Hatorah b'lashon mayad. Ahava Rabba, since it's enacted specifically for Kriya Shema, it doesn't look like Birchas Hatorah unless you learn immediately. Now here's another question. What difference does it make if a person learns or not? If they're mechavein explicitly to be Yotzei Birchas Hatorah, Birchas Hatorah is not Persume Nisa. There's no din Persume Nisa by Birchas Hatorah. Who cares what it looks like? It depends what the person's doing. If the person's mechavein that it should be Birchas Hatorah, then let it be Birchas Hatorah. It almost sounds like, in this case, your kavanah is irrespective, because if it was enacted to be a bracha on Shema, your kavanah alone cannot extract it from that category. You need to do a maisa to show that this is serving as Birchas Hatorah. Okay, one second. V'kasav halavush sha'afim hispala. Let's say you davened. V'siyim tfilasai. Einoi nikra b'zeh hefsek. If you learn right away. In other words, it sounds like what the Mishna Berura is saying is, you davened, you said Shemana Esrei, and you said the Yoim, you said Oleinu, you said the Sheish Zechiros, you said the Animamins, you said the Psukim of Chu, you said everything in the Siddur, and then you learn. That's also okay. Miyad afilu ma'at l'shem mitzvas limud, even a little bit for the sake of learning. Va'az shuv lo yitzarich levarich kol hayom. Then you would not have to make a bracha the whole day. Afilu hifsik va'amad v'chazal limuda, even if you interrupted and you went back to your learning. Al derech sheizbar lekamei beVirchas Hatorah, just like Birchas Hatorah proper. Look in the Bir Halacha for a moment. He brings that the Levush says even if you finish davening, then you could learn after that. He brings that he found in the Arzarua that the only issue is if you go to work between Ahava Rabba and learning. But all tefillah, even if you're going to take a long walk to go to the Beis Medrash to get a sefer, that's not a hefsek. Says Mishna Berura, that's only if you didn't talk. If you talked, then you would have to make a full-fledged Birchas Hatorah. Again, write down the question, why do you have to learn? Why shouldn't kavana be enough? I understand mitzvah strichas kavana. So I had kavana. Why do I need to learn? Because otherwise it doesn't look like Birchas Hatorah. Since when is there Persume Nisa by Birchas Hatorah? What difference does it make what it looks like? Sivches. Sorry, let's just finish up Sivches. V'yesh lehistapik. Isagi b'koyrei kriya shema samach la miyad b'li hefsek. There's a suffix if it's enough to say Kriya Shema without a hefsek. V'chein yesh lizar levarich Birchas Hatorah koydem avas olam. Meaning, we just said avas olam paters Birchas Hatorah if you learn right away. So does Shema work to be considered learning right away. So it's a suffix. Therefore, you should be careful to say Birchas Hatorah, meaning he's bothered by a kasha. If Kriya Shema counts as Torah, then why do we ever have to say Birchas Hatorah? Just say Avas Olam, and you'll be Yotze because you said Shema right after. The answer is because Shema might not count. So, okay, it won't count, I'll learn right after. And you might forget to learn. So it sounds like the only reason we make Birchas Hatorah is because Shema might not count and you might forget to learn. But Lu Yitzur, you would never forget, then you wouldn't have to make Birchas Hatorah. You could rely on Avas Olam. Even though maybe you'll say, the reason I have to make Birchas Hatorah is not to say Psukim, Derech Tachnunim. Let's see the Mishna Berura V'yesh L'stapik. D'yesh Loimar, you could say the Kriya Shema have a rak k'divrei tefillah. Kriya Shema is only like prayer. Kivan she'eno oimer zel l'shem limud. Since you're not doing it for the sake of limud. The Chazon Ish says that even if I was doing it for limud, but we know there's a famous klal, you can't be mekayim two things at the same time. So Kriya Shema, since your kavanah is for the mitzvah, so it can't count as learning. But v'ayim beber hagrosh shalichiach v'pshitos de'ein Kriya Shema mo'el. The Gra says for sure not. Kriya Shema does not work. Achar kach matzah gam came to Seif Rabba. Afterwards, I found in the Rabba shehivi gam kain meharbe poiskim upasa kain lahalacha that Kriya Shema doesn't work. V'nira dimkara Kriya Shema achar zman Kriya Shema. How it would seem that if you say Shema after the zman, so then your Kriya Shema is only like learning. It could be according to everyone. You don't have to go back and make another bracha. Even if you didn't learn afterwards right away. By the same token, the Dirshu brings from Shalsa Shuvas Saras Tshuva that if you daven Marav early and you're not yotze in the mitzvah of Shema, then Shema will work as Torah. And therefore, Yesh Lizar, you have to be careful to say Birchas Hatorah. The Shema Yishkach Lilmaid Takef La'achar Tefillah. Maybe you'll forget to learn immediately after davening. Okay, Rabbi Isai, we'll hold it over here. Bez Hashem Monday, we'll pick it up in Sif Tes, continuing in Hilchos Birchas Hatorah. Have a good day, everyone. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.